the inaugural edition last year, and it's wonderful to have you join us again. And to those of you who've joined us this year, welcome to Cape Town, and welcome to the second edition of Cape Town Conversations. We'll now begin and commence with our dialogue this morning, and I hope you had a nice dinner and a relaxed evening and enjoyed the music as well. Before we invite people to start with the welcome addresses, we will play both the South African national anthem and the anthem of the African Union. If I could request everyone to please rise, and we'll then request the production team to play the anthems as well.
Let us
Thank you so much. I could request everyone to please take their seats. To commence with the conference this time, may I invite Dr. Samir Saran, President, ORF, to deliver the welcome remarks.
Thank you, Shubh, and good morning and a very warm welcome to all of you on behalf of the Thabo Mbeki Foundation, the Observer Research Foundation. We are delighted that you are joining us for the second edition of the Cape Town Conversations. This year we are really excited because we've been able to bring in close to 300 participants from 61 countries to participate in these proceedings. And this excitement and engagement confirms to us that this is a conversation that is going to become increasingly important, not only in this year when South Africa leads the G20 presidency, but in the days ahead when the Global South will increasingly shape the future of some key domains, sectors, and indeed the world order. We are thrilled that we will be hosting 40 distinct conversations over the next 2 days. And I'm excited that we have gender parity. We have equal number of men and women speaking on these 40 different panels. And I think that's something we promised last year. And we are glad that we've been able to do it in the second edition. So well done to the team at Thabo Mbeki Foundation and to the Observer Research Foundation for putting in that extra effort and bringing in the voices that really matter to the future of the world we seek to build together. Now, this conversation is being hosted in the backdrop of course, as I mentioned, South Africa taking charge of what is clearly the most important multilateral grouping in the world today, the most diverse and most representative grouping in the world today, the G20. And they are following in the footsteps of their partners from the Global South, Indonesia, India, and Brazil. And it would be fair to acknowledge the work done by Indonesia, and the foundations that were managing the T20 in Indonesia are with us at this forum. We must applaud them for keeping the G20 alive. But for the efforts of Indonesia, G20 would not be where it is today. It could have faltered and it could have been a divided house, polarized and fallen victim to the politics of the times. They kept it alive. They added emphasis and focus on development, on digital innovation, on consensus. And I think that was critical, on consensus building in a time when politics was defeating global efforts. India, of course, added some more dimensions and its own flavor to it, the digital public initiative, women-led growth, the reforms of the MDV system, and of course, India truly made it a people's G20, taking it to different cities, towns, and to the streets of India, bringing in the common woman and man into the discussions that were heretofore a very elite conversation. The Brazilians have done a number of very important tasks during their 1 year. I mean, the list is endless and they're going to speak about it, but let me just focus on 3. The Global Alliance Against Hunger and Poverty, I think that's a very credible initiative, and it's important that in this day and age when we have surpluses of food production, we are unable to reach food to those who need it. And I think this alliance is an important effort that they have mobilized. In international taxation cooperation, where tax havens allow the returns that should be delivered to the developing world to remain in the banks of the rich. And I think this global tax alliance or the tax cooperation, international tax cooperation is something that's whose time had come, and Brazil has brought it to the fore. And of course, a G20 roadmap for MDB reforms. They've taken the agenda forward from Indonesia, India, and they're taking it forward. Now, we are going to hear from South Africa about their plans, and we're going to hear from the team that is working on it, so I don't want to speak about their ambitions. But truly, what can certainly be predicted and can safely be assumed is that South Africa's presidency will be compelling. South Africa has shown in the last year that it can take an international stand, it can mobilize international coalition, and it can make decisions work in favor of issues that are fair and ethical. And we expect South Africa's presidency to be, in some sense, the icing of the cake of the string of Global South presidencies of the G20. So the Cape Town conversation is a moment when many of you who have joined us here can share your thoughts and your perspectives. And we will collect them and collate them and produce them and share them with the leadership of South Africa for them to consider as they take on the mantle of the G20 presidency and architect what will truly be a memorable G20 presidency. So without further ado, let me again welcome you warmly to Cape Town, to the Cape Town Conversations, and thank each one of you for having made the long journey to be with us here and for giving us 2.5 days of your life. So I hope you have a wonderful time here. I hope you make friends. I hope you become part of the Cape Town community, and we hope that this community grows in the days to come. Let me thank our host, South Africa. Let me acknowledge President Thabo Mbeki. Let me acknowledge Speaker of the House, Thoko, Didiza. Let me acknowledge all the other dignitaries, Prime Minister Musa Mara and others who have come here and joined us, and others who will be joining in later this evening. Thank you for your leadership. Thank you for your guidance, and may the conversations begin. Thank you for joining us.
May I now invite the Honorable Thoko Didiza, Trustee, the Thabo Mbeki Foundation, to address us this morning.
Thank you very much, Program Director. President Thabo Mbeki, former President of South Africa and patron of the Thabo Mbeki Foundation. Tony Abbott, former Prime Minister of Australia. Musa Mara, former Prime Minister of Mali. Anand Sharma, former Minister of Commerce and Industry in India. Sunjoy Joshi, Chairman Observer Research Foundation, India, which is commonly known as ORF. Max Bokwana, Chief Executive Officer of Thabo Mbeki Foundation, South Africa. Mr. Jeff Radebe, former Minister in the Republic of South Africa, who has held many portfolios, the first one having been the Minister of Public Works. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, without you, we wouldn't be here in Cape Town for the second time. And I must say that as much as I'm speaking on behalf of the Thabo Mbeki Foundation, I'm also the Speaker of the National Assembly of the Parliament of South Africa. And it is indeed a pleasure for me to welcome you in Cape Town, where in the coming year, we'll be hosting the P20 here in Cape Town. And I'm sure the conversations you'll be having today will enrich also that dialogue as to how the public representatives will be able to actually ensure that the direction that the G20 takes indeed is conscious of the majority, the concerns rather, of the majority of the people of the Global South. And I think it is important that some of you who may be here who may not know much about Thabo Mbeki Foundation other than reading about it in the social media or in its website, maybe I must do a little bit of marketing of this foundation, not only because the patron is here, our former president, but also because of the work that the foundation does, which I think has been able to mobilize many important partners in ensuring that it uses its power of convening in order to be able to mobilize many of you who are here today to participate in the agenda that shapes not only South Africa's agenda, but also Africa and the global agenda too. Thabo Mbeki Foundation was established in 2010 with a vision to develop programs that address the challenges facing the African continent and to work collaboratively with like-minded organizations and individuals committed to the renewal of Africa. At the launch of the foundation in 2010, our patron, President Mbeki, stated, I quote, "The fundamental proposition from which we proceed is that the transformation which Africa requires, that our continent prepares the necessary human capital, the brain workers who should both conceptualize such transformation and participate in its implementation. Immanent in this proposition is the assertion that human capital should indeed be African, and therefore that to achieve our goals, we must rely decisively on African minds," close quote. This assertion by our patron, underscores the importance of education and the development of necessary skills to drive Africa's transformation. From its inception, the foundation inspired renewed aspiration for Africa's renewal in the hearts and minds of many people. During the same launch, the Thabo Mbeki African Leadership Institute, a flagship program of the foundation in partnership with the University of South Africa, was also unveiled. The mandate of Timali was to develop a cadre of thought leaders committed to Africa's renewal. After 8 years of consistent output with more than 3,000 graduates from the Leadership Institute and through popular demand, Timali has now been upgraded to a graduate school called the Thabo Mbeki Africa School of Public and International Affairs. The Thabo Mbeki African School of Public and International Affairs is envisioned as a premier candidate school to advance public sector education in public and in international affairs. It also seeks to be a magnet of excellence in education, experiential learning, and research. At the launch of the TM school in September 2010, our patron said, the purpose of education was to learn to question everything, and that our aim in teaching should be to produce men and women who are both critical and creative, close quote. In this respect, he emphasized our students should be encouraged to be thinkers and doers rather than accumulators of facts and receivers of knowledge. This must be so if they are to be instruments of change, working towards the realization of a just and consequently a stable society. The TM School bouquet of learning offerings, primarily the master's and doctoral qualifications, have been developed with the political, economic, social, and cultural renewal of Africa in mind. They are aimed at training public servants, academics, diplomats, leaders in business, civil society, NGOs, and communities, and lifelong learners to adopt the transdisciplinary approach to solving complex problems in Africa and beyond. In doing so, they contribute to creating a culture of excellence in public service and international affairs arena. I do hope that among these constituencies, the public representatives, who are the ones that shape our laws and hold our governments to account, will also be part of this collective. For too long, the history of our continent has been told through the lens of colonialism and apartheid, erasing the contributions and struggles of our people. The Thabo Mbeki Presidential Center seeks to rectify this by showcasing the diversity, resilience, and creativity of our people. The Presidential Library, scheduled to be opened in 2027, and I'm sure most of you will contribute, if you have not contributed already, to make sure that that library indeed comes into reality. We'll use the archives of historical and contemporary leaders to provide a forum for Africans to better understand and treasure the past, enrich the present, and meet the challenges of the future. It is my hope that the programming and exhibition of the center will inspire future generations to embrace our shared history and work towards a brighter future for all. This history, as much as may be African history, but is a history that connects the Africa's people with the world. It is a history that would also showcase the trade routes that Africa from long before had held with the world, particularly the East. That is why in countries such as in India, you will still find some of the people who look like me with short hair, some of whom still speak their indigenous languages, that India is still trying to decode what it says. We believe that Africa stands as a pivotal juncture in history. With our rich resources, youthful populations, and most of whom who are here, and increasing influence on the global stage, We have the tools necessary to shape our destiny. However, this requires a concerted effort to harness our strengths, address our weaknesses, and work collaboratively towards common goals. Central to this vision is the principle of South-South cooperation. The challenges faced by countries in the Global South are often similar, be it in economic development, technological advancement, or social inclusion. By fostering ties among ourselves, we can share experiences, pool resources, and develop homegrown solutions that are tailored to our unique context. South-South cooperation is not merely an alternative to traditional North-South dynamics. It is a complement that enriches the global discourse. It allows us to present new perspectives, challenge existing paradigms, and contribute to a more balanced, inclusive international system. We can actually reflect on this when we trace what has been the thematic issues that have been dealt with by the G20, starting from Indonesia, India, and Brazil. In an increasingly interconnected and multipolar world, multilateralism remains a vital mechanism for addressing global challenges. The Thabo Mbeki Foundation firmly believes that through multilateral engagements, we can amplify the voices of the Global South, ensuring that our interests and concerns are adequately represented on the world stage. The Cape Town conversation, which we are in here again for the second time, exemplifies this commitment. By bringing together diverse stakeholders from senior government officials to thought leaders and innovators, we aim to facilitate dialogues that transcend borders and disciplines. It is through such inclusive discussions that we can develop actionable strategies to reform global governance structures, making them more reflective of the 21st century realities. As we look ahead, the importance of advancing the Global South agenda cannot be overstated. The year 2024 has represented us with numerous challenges, from geopolitical conflicts affecting supply chains of the pressing need for sustainable development amidst climate change. Yet amidst these difficulties, the Global South continues to be a beacon of hope, a region of steady economic growth, innovation, and resilient communities. I'm happy that as these conversations are continuing here in Cape Town, the United Nations Development Programme, UNDP, is also having the dialogue in Johannesburg, where it is reflecting amongst their constituencies who represent about 200 participants coming from UNDP country representatives. And I'm happy that the head of South Africa UNDP country office is amongst us here today. It's also reflecting on how the UNDP can work with countries, their governments, their civil society, to be able to contribute in shaping the development agenda of those countries. They're looking at their future and how they must act. With South Africa set to assume the G20 presidency in 2025, we have a unique opportunity to influence global policies in favor of solidarity, equality, and sustainability. The Thabo Mbeki Foundation is committed to leveraging this moment to future the goals of African Renaissance and to ensure that the aspirations of the Global South are not only heard, but acted upon. We encourage all participants over the next 3 days to engage earnestly in the discussion, workshops, and networking opportunities that the Cape Town Conversation offers. Your insights, expertise, and collaboration are essential in driving forward the initiatives that will shape our collective future. Let us use this forum to challenge conventional thinking, to propose innovative solutions, and to build partnerships that extend beyond these conference walls. Together, we can transform the dialogues of today into the actions of the future. In closing, we would like to reiterate the Thabo Mbeki Foundation's dedication to making the Cape Town Conversations an enduring annual event and a cornerstone that continuously advances the Global South agenda through the spirit of multilateralism. We're committed to working alongside all of you to realize the vision of a renewed and prosperous Africa within a just and equitable world order. I want to say, in finishing your 3 days of engagement, surely you will be tired. You will need some break. You will need to see the seaside and see some mountains of Cape Town. So you can extend your booking for another day in a hotel and just take a ride to see the Hermanas. Sorry you didn't come in September. You've missed the whales. But you'll still see some sea creatures that will be of interest to you. If not, you can dip in the waters of the Indian Ocean and enjoy being at home, away from home. Thank you for being here, and we look forward to the fruitful exchanges that await us.
Thank you so much, the Honorable Thoko Didiza. May I now invite Excellency Prabhat Kumar, High Commissioner of India to South Africa, to address all of you. So.
Good morning, Sani Bonani, Dumelang, former President Thabo Mbeki, Speaker Didiza, our former Minister of Commerce and Minister of External Affairs, Anand Sharma, Ambassador Lata Reddy, former ministers, MPs. I do not have the list, so I will go by the local convention, all protocols observed. I am very happy to be here today to join you for this second edition of Cape Town Conversation. I was not able to come last year because of other engagements, but I think last year the BRICS was there and there were some other meetings in Pretoria and Johannesburg. So I came to South Africa in August last year, just before the BRICS meeting, and I have been here for 1 year. And I see the relevance of the Cape Town Conversation, which brings together the think tanks of the world and to Africa, to South Africa, and just on the eve of of South Africa taking over the presidency of G20. I recall that when we took over the presidency of G20 in 2022 December, our Prime Minister wrote, Prime Minister Narendra Modi wrote that we must take the views of the Global South when we have our presidency. And in that context, we held two actually in 2023, Voice of Global South summits. It was virtual, in which there was participation from the Global South countries. In the first summit, there were 125 participants, including from many countries, including South Africa. And we saw, and from those conversations that Prime Minister had in those virtual summits, we were able to glean what the Global South required. And just after the summit, we had another conversation, the second Voice of Global South Summit in 2023 in October, in which again we took the views. And this year also, in September, we had another edition of Voice of Global South Summit. So the idea was to take the view of the Global South and make it part of the global conversation, as centerpiece of the global conversation. And that is what is happening now, and I hope that this Cape Town Conversation will work on it. So from our presidency, we got, of course, apart from the Voice of Global South Summit, we had African Union becoming a member of G20, and seeing that Indonesia, India, and Brazil, and now South Africa, 4 countries in a row from the Global South, have taken the presidency of G20, and that means that the agenda of Global South will remain the central agenda during the presidency of G20 of South Africa, and this also we have been assured from the government of South Africa. So that's a good development. We also continue to work with South Africa on many other forums, including BRICS, IPSA, and we had an IPSA exercise recently in Cape Town in October, the first half of October, in which India, Brazil, and navies of India, Brazil, and South Africa participated. So IPSA also continues to be strong, and the three democracies of the world work together in this forum on many aspects. We see that there is a Africa free continental area developing, and there is a lot of progress in the Africa free continental free trade area, and as it progresses, India is also working with them to become part of this free trade area and to become part of the development of the Africa free trade area. I will be participating in this forum today. Tomorrow we are having a conference on energy in Johannesburg, in which there is participation from a lot of Indian companies, the big companies of India, we call them Maharatna and Navratnas, and also from the companies of South Africa and other African countries. We will have the Minister of Electricity of South Africa participating, and also virtual participation from our Minister of Power. So this is a good occasion when we are talking about energy. We will have a conversation on energy, which is critical for development of the Global South. I think Africa will be a pivot on which the new energy transition will happen, because Africa has the capability and capacity to support that, especially in the field of critical minerals. And most of the critical minerals which are going to be part of the energy transition is available in Africa. So also the new energy, such as green hydrogen, will be coming from Africa, apart from other countries like India. But therefore, this will be a good conversation that we'll be having in Johannesburg. But for today, I would like to thank, of course, Observer Research Foundation, Thabo Mbeki Foundation, and others who are participating and have brought together the think tanks of the world. And I think, Speaker, I promise you that we will publicize the work of Thabo Mbeki Foundation and make it, of course, the High Commission will be happy to work with you, and of course India will be happy to work with you in future. So thank you very much for inviting me for this event, and I wish it all success. Thank you.
Thank you, Excellency. It is now my honor and privilege to invite the Honorable Thabo Mbeki, former President of South Africa, to address all of you this morning. Sir. Thank you for having us back, sir. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Good morning, everybody. I hope we're all okay. It says on my notes here, which I got from the organizers, it says I'm going to deliver an inaugural address. It's wrong. I'm not going to do that. But let me say, I really am, I want to join Samir Saran, Thoko Didiza, the High Commissioner of India, to welcome all of you here. Let me tell you something about this hotel. You know, I was in exile for 28 years, from 1962, and came back 1990. So, to begin the negotiations with the apartheid regime. So we flew out of Lusaka, Zambia, to Cape Town, this airport here. And you know, as we came, I'm saying this is after 28 years of absence. So as we flew from Lusaka to Cape Town, it was an ordinary flight. Except when we flew over South Africa, the pilots were South African, but they flew a Zambia Airways plane. So they were telling us, now we're flying over Johannesburg, we're flying over Kimberley, we're flying over wherever. Beyond that, it felt very, very ordinary. Like a flight, I suppose, between Mumbai or Delhi and so on. And what struck me was why it had taken so long to take an ordinary flight after so many people had died, but the thing seemed so easy to come home to talk to the enemy. So we landed at Cape Town, and we, of course, naturally, our hosts were the apartheid regime. And so they drove us straight to this hotel. So my first home after coming back home after 28 was this hotel, the Lord Charles. And we're meeting here, the Lord Charles, in order to bring an end to 350 years of colonial rule. As I said, a simple flight from Lusaka to Cape Town, and a simple drive from Cape Town airport to here, but to do a major, major job. To sit down with the apartheid regime to say, how do we end apartheid and how do we end colonial rule? I'm mentioning that because we are meeting here today and tomorrow, in my view, to do a very, very important thing. To say to ourselves, what are the challenges of the Global South? What are the aspirations of the Global South? And how are those aspirations to be achieved? I think the point that was made by Samir Saran is important, and Thoko, that South Africa takes over the presidency of the G20, and it must raise, as president of the G20, like Brazil, like India, like Indonesia, must raise this question. What are the challenges of the Global South? What are the aspirations of the Global South? And how are those aspirations to be addressed? Bearing in mind in particular that we are operating, that Global South is operating within the context of this global world, which has got these other people within this global world who do not necessarily share the interests and aspirations of the Global South. I happen to chair the board of the South Center, based, as you know, everybody knows here would know, based in Geneva. Its only task is to serve as a think tank of the developing countries. And every day, you find these ambassadors of the South, every day engaged in a constant battle, whether it's WTO, WHO, whatever, in Geneva. Yeah, it's a constant struggle. To address this matter, how are the aspirations of the Global South going to be addressed? And so I'm saying that as we meet here over these 2 days, considering these matters, my view is that we will indeed approach all of these questions that we've got to discuss. The South African-led multilateralism. I noticed that in one of the plenary sessions we discussed that, South-led multilateralism, issues of trade and investment in a new world system, paths to peace, all of these matters. So that indeed, as South Africa takes over the presidency of the G20 following all these other countries of the South, there must be a message from us here, which says in continuation of what has been happening in the terms of this G20 meetings, this is what we want to achieve. This is what the G20, the Global South wants to achieve, and this is how it should be done. Of course, we know very well that these important matters that the Global South raises, it raises them in the context of, there are many other issues around the world which take other people's attention away from what we think are very urgent matters. But that's a setting, we can't do anything about that. So I am really hoping, therefore, that we will all attend to this, I think it's 16 plenary sessions, to discuss these various topics, which are each one of them very important in terms of defining what is this thing that we want and how should it be achieved. So that becomes the global agenda of the Global South, which is a matter then which must be pursued not only through the G20, but in also other fora. Even in this one I'm talking about, so that even our colleagues who sit in Switzerland, in the South Center, need to be informed. This is our approach towards these issues of the Global South. So as you are negotiating every day with the rest of the world, this is what we think. So I want to say a warm welcome to this meeting. And I had a bit of a chat with the organizers yesterday to say that I really hope that when we conclude tomorrow, there will be somebody who will be able to say, from all of the discussions that we've had over these 2 days, this seems to be some of what we are saying. With regard to the question, what is to be done? I'm hoping that we'll be able to do that because we must aim, coming here and sitting at this hotel, which has got a strange name, the Lord Charles. Lord Charles is talking, this Charles is talking about, is Charles Somerset, a British colonial governor, but we still, we honor them still. Quite why, I don't know, but we do. I'm saying that when we come out of here, in the same way as when we arrived, we came back here in 1990, we're saying that we must make absolutely certain that by the time we conclude all of this discussion with this enemy of ours, we must decide on a changed South Africa. And I really hope that by the time we conclude here discussing these matters of the Global South and what it needs, we'll also be able to say, we come out of here with a message which truly, truly points the way as to how to address these aspirations of the Global South within the context of an international system which is not necessarily that friendly to addressing the aspirations of the Global South. But a warm welcome to everybody. As I was saying that I wasn't going to make any inaugural address, but a warm welcome and good luck in the work that you have to do, which is very, very important. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, sir. It's always an honor to hear from you and of your vast experience and, of course, about the history of this hotel, and who better to tell it than President Mbeki himself. May I now invite Mr. Sunjoy Joshi, Chairman at the Observer Research Foundation, to deliver the vote of thanks for this segment, sir.
Good morning, everybody, and thank you so much, Shubh. President Thabo Mbeki, President of the Foundation of the same name, Thoko Didiza, Speaker of the National Assembly and Trustee of the Mbeki Foundation, who started as our partners to put these conversations into place and have today become friends and colleagues. The Cape Town conversations would not have been possible without you. And we are all here, there's energy in this room, people gathered from the continents all over, you can feel the energy, are basically here because they look ahead to a future in a world which is not as troubled as what it seems to be today. We live in extremely uncertain times, and these are times when information itself is a weapon. It's like a guided missile targeted at the very foundations of trust and belief between nations to reduce any understanding or comprehension of the world we live in to immediate rubble and dust. This is the kind of world we're living in. Now, where we come from, where the Cape Town conversations are taking place, we exist in a situation where the amount of information we have on a subject has become inversely proportional, exactly inversely proportional to our understanding of the situation. So how do we get clarity to many of these issues? And the inaugural addresses which we heard, so many excellent addresses, were all about getting to this understanding, getting the people in this room gathered from all over, our experts, our young minds, our mentors who are here in this room, to lead us into the way forward. So thank you, all of you, for being here. I mean, our minds are not really captive yet. They've not been captured yet. But yes, they have been rendered like refugees, without anchor, looking for some bearing, looking for some direction as to where to go. And in the same, we heard about the role of the G20 and the various multilateral fora. They show that multilateralism is not dead. Multilateralism is certainly at a crossroads, but it is not dead yet. We saw the progress of the G20. We heard about how it has moved from Indonesia, which salvaged a dying G20, which almost got torn apart over the divisions within the G20. We heard about what India has done within the G20, convert it to a people's G20, more than a people's G20, to make it into the voice of the Global South, to get the African Union into the G20 as a member. And then it passes on to Brazil. And Brazil, very clearly, in another very extremely troubled time, makes it very clear that this is not about the wars being fought in various places. The real wars are against hunger and poverty. The real wars are about shaping the powers of technology, not to use it as a weapon, but to use it as a public good for the good of the last man on the ground. That is what is the purpose of technology. So these are all initiatives which have been coming forward. And where are they coming forward from? No, the various organizations, the various countries where these debates and discussions are taking place today are all in the Global South. So this is the lead which we've taken. Consultative, consensual diplomacy has for some years been taking a back seat within established multilateral institutions. And we've seen it happen, you see. Whether it is at the International Court of Justice, whether it is at the Security Council, whether it is at COP29, which just concluded. So where does one turn if one has to look at the future for some glimmer of hope as to where we are headed? And that is where the world is turning with the country of the Global South into alternative forms of plurilateral groupings. That is precisely what we are seeing. So I don't have much to say at this juncture because all these conversations are actually going to be about some of these key issues over the next few days. And just last week, as we've heard, South Africa assumed the presidency of the G20, putting itself at the helm of similar multilateral efforts at a time when global multilateralism is at the crossroads. This is not just about the Global South. This is about reinventing, reforming the way countries are going to be interacting with each other once again. So in this context, it is not just the G20. You see, the initiatives launched by the Economic Commission of Africa to push digital governance, to push trade, to push investments. The resolve of India and China to come together at Kazan at the BRICS Summit to say, okay, let us park our differences. Let us give diplomacy a chance. Let us look forward. We are here to fare forward, not to look back. See, we all have extremely contiguous histories. We have a common history of colonialism. Every other nation has lots of histories to complain about. But histories cannot be used to divide us. They cannot be used to rebuild an iron curtain, or for that matter, a bamboo curtain, in a new world. We've left that all behind. So faring forward is primarily what the Global South is about, what these conversations are about, and what all of us here are assembled in the Cape Town conversations for. So the future is not about gazing back at what has happened. No, those cannot furnish the logic for dividing the world into them and us, canceling people, not allowing them to participate, not having conversations when they're there. It is about having conversations, getting everybody in the room. And countries in the Global South today are showing that that is still possible. And that is going to be the future moving ahead. So all I will say is that these are the kinds of discussions. What matters for the Global South, as has been made very clear in the past few addresses we've had, is about including everybody. It is about social inclusion. It is about eradicating hunger. It is about saving the planet. That is where the real war is. It is not about what is happening in Ukraine. It is not about what is happening in Gaza. Those things, reprehensible as they are, and as South Africa has shown, they need to be condemned where they are. We are here, so if you talk of a rules-based international order, we judge people alike, whether they are friends or foes. It does not matter. The actions are judged, not the people. And we have to be prepared to judge those actions. So this is what a rules-based international order is all about. So these are, I'm sure, going to be some of the discussions which are going to be part of these conversations. And for this, I especially thank all our partners who have been here, excellencies, dignitaries who have come here to be joining us for part of these conversations. Thank you, and let the next 2 days begin.
Thank you, Mr. Joshi. May I now invite the first panel on stage. We will be discussing Order from Chaos, the model for South-led multilateralism, moderated by Samir Saran, President of the Observer Research Foundation. On the panel would be Mr. Anand Sharma, the former Minister of Commerce and Industry from India, Maria Elena Aguera, Secretary